This conference will now be recorded.
Well, thank you. Confirmation of agenda. May I have a mover and seconder, please?
Alan DeBreen will move it.
Who's the seconder?
Who was the mover? I think two.
Alan moved it. And
I have Alan as the mover and John as the seconder.
Alan is a second. Good, we got that out of the way. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If you have a pecuniary interest, you can report it now or any time during the course of the meeting. May I have a move and a second for the adoption of the minutes?
Alan DeBreen will move it.
Alan again. And John. Or Don. Sorry, Don. Any business arising from the minutes? Not hearing none. Go to the detachment command. Before we go to your report, I noticed that Mr. Constable Wilcox has turned up. Would you like to introduce him?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to introduce Keegan Wilcox. He is a successful candidate for the application for the Staff Sergeant Ops Manager position at Grey Bruce OPP. And Keegan, I'm just going to turn it over to you to give a little bit of your background for the board, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As Acting Inspector Anderson indicated, I started here in Grey Bruce mid-October, so I've got a couple weeks under my belt, still navigating and finding my way and figuring out who's who and all that good stuff. Just a little history on me. I have about 14 years service in policing. I started my career back in 2008 in Huron County. From there, I transferred to Northeast Region. I worked in Kirkland Lake for about 7 years. While I was there, I worked in crime for a short time, and then I was promoted to sergeant. After my 7 years there, I transferred back to West Region and spent almost 6 years in South Bruce out of Kincardine. And while I was there, acted as the staff sergeant for a couple of years and platoon sergeant for a number of years with a bunch of other administrative roles, and was finally promoted here. So I'm happy to be here.
Good. You're welcome here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Keegan's sorry, I just want to say that Keegan's a welcome addition here to have more stability and consistency here at Grey Bruce OPP. I know that the board's aware that there's been a number of changes at the administrative level here, and with myself as the permanent staff sergeant, but acting inspector right now, and Keegan as a permanent staff sergeant, I think we can get some great work done.
Good. Doing good work as it is. Your report, Deborah, is item number 7. So may I have a mover and seconder for the detachment commander's report?
Alan DeBreen will move it.
Alan's moving it, and you have your choice between John and Don. Both raise their hand at the same time. Okay, Deborah, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to start with page 2 of the report, just noting the calls for service in Southgate. Obviously, they're more than they were in 2020. I think with the population increase, that number is going to increase over the years. It looks like we're on our way in 2021. The second part of that page is victim services for Bruce, Grey, and Perth. We get these numbers from victim services, and that's why it includes the 3 areas. I include that just to show that we do consider victims of crime and try to look after them and make referrals so that they can navigate through the system that we have. On page 3, COVID-related calls for service up very slightly from 2020. I don't think there's going to be a significant increase. A lot of those calls for service were checking at the beginning of the year anyway, checking on people that were supposed to be quarantining. We would get information from the province to do follow up on that. And as far as we found, everybody had been complying. False alarms, up slightly from 2020. That may be due to a lot of people were working from home in 2020 and maybe not had their alarms on, but not a huge increase. 911 hangups are down significantly, so that's a good sign. That does cause a lot of work. It's usually 2 officers responding, a lot of travel time, and a lot of the times it ends up just being, you know, kids playing with the phone or pocket dials. Next area is crime, the violent crime. So we have for Southgate, homicide, sexual assault, robbery, and assault. No significant changes there, up slightly in the assault category, but both Grey Bruce as a whole and Southgate, both the violent crime is trending downward. On page 4 of the report, we have property crime, which includes fraud, investigations, break and enter, auto theft, theft, and mischief. Again, there's no, there's a significant decrease in frauds, which is good to see. Break and enters, no real change from 2020. Auto thefts down slightly. Thefts in general are up, and mischiefs are down slightly. Next on page 5, we have drugs and drug investigations, up significantly in 2021, and I believe that's due to the good work of our street crime unit. They did complete a couple of warrants in the Southgate area that were successful, so that's going to increase the amount of charges there. Other investigations, which include domestic disputes and missing persons. So the domestic disputes have risen basically since 2018. I think that's largely due to the increase in population in Southgate. With more population, there are more calls for service we're going to get in that particular area. And I think that's trending up a little bit in Southgate and down in Grey Bruce as a whole. I turn your attention to page 6 of the report. This is the report submitted by our Detective Sergeant Byron Schloss. For the months of the last couple of months, so September 1st to October 31st, our crime unit had a multi-jurisdictional homicide that was due to the found remains up in northern Bruce Peninsula. We had 11 sudden death investigations, 2 of which were opiate overdoses, 10 sexual assaults, 6 criminal harassment investigations, and 2 in-depth missing person cases. The in-depth missing person cases, generally missing persons, we can locate them within 24 to 48 hours. These 2 went on for, I think, about a week, but eventually we were able to find them both alive. Our major crime unit has continued to follow up on leads, prepare for court, and investigate several ongoing homicides, which are listed below. And I just wanted to bring your attention to the Chisor homicide. It was found human remains in Southgate. That was a very difficult investigation, almost a needle in the haystack. but there were charges laid in that particular instance. The crime unit did a great job on that. Just going on to page 7 here with the community street crime unit. Had a little bit more in-depth report for you from our street crime unit. A little bit more background on where we're at with our unit. We have had several, it's a temporary assignment, rotational assignment that is generally 4 to 5 years, where officers rotate in. They work for the unit, and then at the end of that, they go back to shift and they bring all that knowledge back with them, and they can share that with their shift and frontline officers. They continue to tackle community level drugs and property crime occurrences, and this helps to ensure public safety, and it delivers proactive and innovative policing. The unit has specialized training in with respect to controlled drugs and substances. It includes surveillance training, search warrant execution, firearms and intelligence gathering, and that includes developing confidential informants. So as I was mentioned, they had 3 senior detectives in the community street crime unit that have moved on to other opportunities, and they're developing and training new members. Page 8, this is an overall community street crime for West Region report. And the reason why I included that for the board, it just shows you the level of enforcement that our unit here is completing in our area, as opposed to some of the bigger, more populated areas. So it really goes to show you the work that they're doing there. Out of 8 teams, they were the 3rd highest in warrants and workload. This is trending since 2020. So in 2020, our street crime unit had the 2nd highest number of search warrants executed, which means more drugs off the street. It means that more people are held accountable for their illegal activity, and you know, this helps the entire community up here. So in 2020, they investigated 53 occurrences. They charged 51 people with 233 criminal code or drug offenses. They executed 32 search warrants, and 17 of which involved warrant service entry, and that means the team is the one that is actually kicking in the door and going in. Depending on the intelligence, we may request the assistance of our TRU team to do the entry, but a lot of times our street crime unit with their training can look after that on their own. Page 10 of the report, looking at e-ticketing. So the number of warnings that were issued, which we're able to capture now with the e-ticketing. Before, we could not capture the stats on the warnings that were issued. And every traffic stop, if you keep in mind that when an officer has a vehicle pulled over, the cars following or passing that traffic stop are all slowing down as well. So it has a big community impact. So we have September and October's numbers. And as you'll see by the chart below, the most common charge is speeding anywhere from 1 to 49 kilometers over the speed limit. And page 11, it just shows you in Grey Bruce where the traffic enforcement is happening. And I'm sorry, I'm just realizing that the Southgate or area of enforcement is not a great map. We'll try to improve that map. It is something that gets spit out when we do an actual retrieval of the information. Page 12 is a list of your motor vehicle collisions. And in reviewing them, we have everything from, you know, hitting a wild or domestic animal, usually deer. There's driver error. There's only one unknown, but there's nothing there that brings my attention to anything that needs to be adjusted with respect to the engineering of a particular either intersection or stretch of roadway. Page 13, impaired driving. So impaired driving is up in Southgate, and I know that we have done some focus patrols on with ride checks in Southgate, because when we did a study on our impaired driving and the increases that we were having, Southgate was one of the areas that were targeted, and we've done about 40 hours ride there, and that would account for the increase in the number of impaired driving. And later today, we're going to be kicking off our festive ride program, and we're going to have some media coverage on that, and we're going to try to hit most of the areas. We're doing it in partnership with the surrounding police agencies. I include the suspect apprehension pursuit. There's only been one in Southgate, and I don't believe it started in Southgate. It was something that ended up going through Southgate. So 1 is a good number, 0 would be better, but you know, there are times when we do have to engage in pursuits. So if you take a look at the chart below, impaired driving slightly up, that's due to increase in enforcement, and pursuits are pretty well flatline there. Traffic complaints, nothing unusual there. There's no increase. It's pretty much the same from year to year. Noise complaints, not very many of those, and animal complaints slightly higher, and I'd have to look into that deeper just to know what caused the increase there, but it's not a significant number. So page 14, municipal bylaw. We have had an increase, calls for service there. That could be a couple of locations that needed additional attention, and our officers were happy to assist there. As you can see, the ride patrol hours, 40 hours for September and October there. And paid duty numbers are up. Generally for our detachment area, and that could be due to the proactive traffic enforcement weekends that we had in the summer. Page 15 is just an overview of our media officers' contribution. The in-depth missing person occurrences I was talking about earlier, media played a big role in us locating both those missing persons alive. So media plays a big role in getting the information out to the public and requesting their assistance. Our court bureau, which is page 19 of my report. As you can see, for September and October, we had 18 bails that were held at the detachment here, and 99 criminal informations were sworn to through the court bureau. Record checks, we did 60 level 1 and 2, and a total of 343 vulnerable sector checks, which are labor intensive. I'm really looking forward to the criminal record checks being centralized because it does cause a lot of work administratively for the detachments. Our part-time unit, that's our 4 part-time officers that we hired a couple of years ago. Summons and subpoenas, they served 23, and civilian fingerprints, they did 17 for September, 23 for October, and civilian fingerprints 17 for September and 15 for October. Our page 20 is our auxiliary unit. I was happy to have our auxiliary unit come out on Remembrance Day and assist on a couple of the ceremonies that were held locally. We are down in our active members. We have authorized strength of 17. We're down to 9. So again, I'm going to recruit for them. If anybody knows a member of the community that would like to become an auxiliary member, please direct them to the opp.ca online. All the information is there, and if they have any questions, they can contact our auxiliary liaison officer here, Sean Herlahai, just through calling the detachment here. Our auxiliary unit in the last couple of months did just under 150 hours volunteering with us this month, patrolling. They assisted South Bruce OPP with a Cops for Cancer bicycle event. They are trained and now look after installing our speed spy signs, so we don't have to take officers off the road to do that. And they're planning for the upcoming holiday food drives that they partake in every year. Right below that is the mobile mental health and addiction response team through CAMH. We had a total of 11 calls in the last couple of months. Still working on getting an embedded clinician with the Grey Bruce OPP, just as the surrounding units or surrounding municipal and OPP detachments have. On page 21, noteworthy events in Grey Bruce. Just wanted to bring your attention in September, PC Chapman and PC McElwain and PC Smith. These officers have been acknowledged with their outstanding effort in locating, treating, and apprehending a suicidal barricaded male. Their swift and decisive actions could have very well assisted in saving this man's life. In October, Staff Sergeant Wilcox and Acting Staff Sergeant Keelhole and Sergeant Hunter. These are obviously Staff Sergeant Wilcox is our permanent ops manager now, and Acting Staff Sergeant Keelhole, he's filling in my position while I'm acting detachment commander. He comes from Perth County and very organized, very efficient, and doing a great job in the couple of weeks that he's been here. Sergeant Hunter, he has taken on the role of support sergeant here. He looks after, well, he looks after pretty much everything else, fleet management, building management, and the civilian members and ERT members report to him administratively here at the detachment. And just below that, we've had several members received their recognition for their years of service, anywhere from 20 years. We've got one 30-year service there, and the remainder the 25-year service recognition. And Mr. Chair, that would be my report. Thank you. Unless there's any questions.
Jim, I have one question. Debbie, how is your overall staffing? Like, are you down? I figure with between COVID and everything else, you're probably not up to full complement all the time. So just wondering.
Yeah, actually, we're doing really well. So when I first came here on my temporary assignment, we had anywhere from 10 to 13 vacancies here. And I'm happy to say by February of next year, we should be fully staffed. We may have 1 or 2 vacancies depending on if there's any transfer outs. But by February 2022, we should be fully staffed here, 103 uniform members.
Excellent, good, thank you.
Any other comments? Deborah, I've got a couple of things here that I think should be addressed. The first one should be addressed by the township itself. It's municipal bylaws. Year to date, 17 calls for service for violations of municipal bylaw. It's very, very costly for the OPP to do these investigations. We have our own bylaw enforcement group And as soon as we get some ticket books for municipal bylaws, we should be able to bring that cost down a bit. Other thing here is community services. And I found it interesting, conducting meetings with various stakeholders to purchase safety signage for Highway 10, courtesy of the Grey Highlands Police Service Board. This is because they have a reserve fund. I've been asking our treasurer for that for some time and getting absolutely nowhere. We should have our own reserve to do the same type of good work that Grey Highlands is doing. Hopefully, when the budget gets settled at the end of this year, we'll have something to show for it. Other item here is Mennonite school children. I have a great deal of concern for the kids that walk up 109 to the school. They have no safety clothing, they can't be seen, and when the sun's coming up, they're in the shade, then they're in bright light, and it's hard for the drivers to notice these little kids. Is there any way the community service officer could talk to the schools about these children walking on the road without any clear colouring? Might be something for the community safety officer.
Sure, I can certainly look into that and perhaps do a focus patrol in that area just to observe and see, you know, what's happening, and then we can come up with a plan to see if we can work with the community there to ensure their safety. I certainly understand what you're saying with respect to that. Yeah.
There is one group of young children. They get on bicycles, and one of them has a little wagon on the back of the bike with another small kid in that wagon. And drivers just don't show any respect for pedestrians. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that, and I can report back to the board on that next meeting. And with respect to the bylaws, I could take a look at the individual occurrences, the 17 that were in the report there. Those may not necessarily be with respect to parking, but it could be that whether it be a building inspection where they requested police attend for safety reasons or anything like that. It could be a number of things, and I could look into that more specifically for you if you like.
At the last council meeting, I was told that parking ticket books will be available in 2 weeks. After 16 years of trying, we're finally getting parking ticket books. We passed bylaws and no means of enforcing. So thank goodness that's one of them out of the way. Any other comments or discussion on the detachment commander's report? Hearing none, that has passed. The next item here, Lindsay, I think you could address that.
Yeah, so there wasn't any correspondence. So on to new and unfinished business. The first item there, the false alarm bylaw. So I did up a draft. It was in the agenda. I'm wondering if members want to send me their comments on it, or we can discuss it now. I just researched a couple other municipalities that had it, and that's the draft that I came up with. So does anyone have any comments or concerns?
I think it's pretty good myself. Let's see what the rest of the board has to say.
Well, Alan DeBreen has a comment.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, my only concern is that we don't want the taxpayers being on the hook. So these fees have got to cover everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it would definitely be a user fee, and then it can roll onto the individual user's tax bill.
Yeah, because it's putting a burden on you and like staff in Southgate itself, like the admin. And then if it comes to the police services board to review it or whatever, so that's all got to be taken into account. Plus, of course, the cost of the police service attending.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then thank you. I would like that addressed because we don't want taxpayers out of pocket for this.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
while
it for
this
me.
bylaw, I've lost everything here.
We can still hear you, Jim.
Can you?
Yep.
Screen has gone blank.
Hmm.
Much like myself.
Your internet, maybe.
This bylaw, when it's passed, won't be enforced by the Police Service Board. It'll be enforced by bylaw enforcement. And the advantage to it is that it'll reduce costs. Every time the OPP goes out to do a call for false alarm, it's very costly. If our own people are doing it, quite a bit of cost saving there. I think that's about it, Lindsay. I don't see anything around here.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah. Here
I'll
we
probably
go.
bring. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to shut this down and restart it and see if I can get something going here. It's a
We
real
can still
pain.
hear you.
Hey?
We can still hear you. I just want, if you shut down, you might lose your connection.
Oh, I think it'll pop right back up again. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Don, did you have something?
Yes, Lindsay, what would be a typical fine for something like that?
That's what I'm not exactly sure. The other places that I researched didn't have a fine, so I'm not really sure. Deborah, have you seen it in other places, what the fine would be?
Yeah, so coming from Wellington County, where they have this false alarm policy, it's $100 for the first false alarm, $200 for the second, $300 for the third, and so on. There is an appeal mechanism where they can request attendance at a police service board meeting to state their case. I'm trying to remember, so Scott Wilson is the CAO there, and I'm trying to remember the staff member's name that administers this. But one of the things that if you move forward with this, we'll have to work out is the timing of when you want us to report how many false alarms that we've attended to you for the administrative part of it. But I would suggest getting hold of Wellington County and picking their brain on that, because they've had this in place for a number of years.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring the draft to this meeting and then do a little bit more work and then come back to the first meeting in January and then try to get it done for that.
I think the first call for a false alarm should be a warning, a written warning. Then the second call, $100 fine, then a $200 fine, and it should be a progressive thing to the point where they get the message that they better do something about these false alarms. We can't be running staff all over the place when somebody's alarm goes off.
Right. John, did you have something?
Yeah, the one that I'm familiar with was the one we had in Toronto, and it was on a time basis as well. Like they were allowed a false alarm in a month, and then once there was a monetary thing, but at the third one, they were charged full amounts, and they were designated as a I can't think of the word, but there was it was that they were non-cooperative, that it was a problem deal. Now, if it was an apartment building that had malicious false alarms, as long as the owner was working with the municipality to try and stop them and bring them down, they weren't fined. Like if they were working hard at stopping it, there was no sense adding insult to injury. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at it too that way.
Right.
So we'll bring this back to the board in January.
Yeah.
Last thing I have here is 2022 conference attendance discussion. We have a number of items that all members are available to go to when to feel like it. The conference is the costly one. The fall seminar is a costly one. And then there's the zone meetings. The budget that I forwarded to Liam last term was shot down in flames, and I was prepared to go to the OCPC to get something done about it. But John said that he would help me out this time. Excuse me. So I'm going to stick to my guns this time around. If we don't get enough funds to let everyone go to the councils, which they're entitled to go to, all hell is going to break loose. So I would like to know now which members intend to go to the annual general conference.
Do you know when it is roughly, Jim?
Yep. When it is? No.
I couldn't find any
Right.
information online about anything for 2022 for them. So I think must not be planned yet, but they'll likely have one.
Holly Doughty said the cost for the conference will be around $500. That's just registration per member. If, for instance, the COVID thing disappears in the early spring and everything is wide open in the province, you've got accommodation to add in there. So if we have a budget for registration only, we're not going to be able to do any actual attendance to the conference. Registration doesn't mean a lot if you don't have accommodation. The meeting in the fall, the seminar, is listed at $300, according to Holly. So if I know who intends to go to these, I can prepare a more accurate budget than just throwing things up in the air.
Alan DeBreen has a comment.
Go ahead.
Well, this board actually was supposed to have been dissolved, as I understand it, September or October, and this new police services board created. What's happening with that? Because that can be a major factor too, because I don't hear anything. I don't know whether any of you have, and basically we're in limbo. And that can have a big effect on the conference, of course.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything at a staff level from it. Nothing at all.
Yeah. It was hurry up and wait, and now it looks like it's DOA.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you're right, Alan. That could affect the conferences and everything. So it is very much up in the air.
That's all I have on that. Thank you.
It's not going to affect the budget too much, because if we get the budget for these items and they bring this new system in, then the budget goes back to general government. So there's really no problem there. We just have to work and assume that we're not going to have this big change early next year or even middle of next year. We may not get it next year. We have to prepare for what we know now. So again, can you let me know which of these you intend to go to?
Jim, I'll go to the annual. I think when that happens, there may be a lot of good information that we'll need for council as well on changes.
Yeah, for sure. Lindsay, can you make a note of that, please?
Yeah, so Jim, you would be interested in going as well as John. I haven't heard anything from Dale or Don or Alan.
Alan is undecided.
Okay, Alan's undecided, so.
You're going to have to decide now. This budget has to go in.
Well, I'll say if John and Jim are going, sorry to interrupt, John and Jim are going, I think that's enough representation from the committee to report back to us. I'll leave it at that. I don't think that we all need to go.
I agree with that.
Wiser use of the township dollars. Someone could even go into patching some holes in the road.
Each and every member of the board is entitled to attend these annual conferences and seminars. There is no restriction. Council can't put a restriction on who goes and who doesn't go.
Well, anyhow,
that's correct.
I'm
yes,
not going to go.
Alan DeBreen agrees with Dale.
So Alan Alan agrees with Dale, so we'll just plan for Councillor Frew and Mayor Woodbury to attend.
Alan's shaking his head. Well, that's nice
Yeah.
to know. So you've got that recorded. Zone
Yep.
5 meetings. Who's going to attend the Zone 5 meetings?
I try to the best I can.
Then we put John in for the Zone 5 meetings and myself for the Zone 5 meetings. And that's
Okay.
about as much as we can do as far as attendance goes.
Right.
So you've got the names there. I'll put the
Yep.
prices to it and put that in the budget. Thanks, Lindy.
Yep.
Members' privilege. Who's got something on members' privilege? John?
Yeah, I just think it's important for the board to know that on some of the different community issues that have been called in either to our bylaw or to police, we've been working on with Debbie and her staff and the building staff pretty aggressively and frustrating between courts and how long it takes for the bylaw issues to go through their process and getting notified after the fact and things like that. It's slow and difficult, but there is a lot going on. So I just wanted to mention that without getting into any particulars. But as you know, Jim, we've met as recently as I think it was last week, and we're meeting again in the near future. So there's a lot of proactive stuff going on.
Yeah, and at that meeting I was, there's a lot of information come out that should have been addressed to the board long before that meeting was held. And I hope it goes a little better at the next meeting. Anything else?
Jim, Don
Yep.
here. Well, the usual thing the last month or so, I've had a, well, an interesting conversation about the Swinton Park situation. It's gone quiet again. What's happening there?
I think Deborah can answer that question better. You like to handle that one,
Thank you,
Deborah?
Mr. Chair. Sure, thank you. I'm having some internet problems, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
So issues in Swinton Park came to our attention, I want to say through the summer. And there's a particular issue with an address there that I assigned my then acting staff Sergeant Karen Ashmore to address. And through work with OPP, Housing, Fire Department, the Electrical Safety Commission, and bylaw, the issue was addressed there. And it helped that new owners took over that particular building and were very cooperative. Since that time, some more information has come to light. Again, this is not, as the mayor was alluding to, that this is not through citizens calling police and reporting this information as it's happening. We're getting it second, third hand sometimes, which is not very helpful. Some of the information that was passed along was not correct, and there doesn't seem to be the issue there that was being brought up. It was mostly nuisance information, quality of life information with respect to some people that were living there. You know, noisy parties, vehicles that they were switching plates from one vehicle to the next, and We did a focus patrol down there, and head officers spent some of their 12-hour shift in Swinton Park to show a presence there and be available if any citizens wanted to make any complaints to police. And I think for the most part that has been addressed. However, there's seems to be a few residual things, matters that need to be looked after, and that is on our radar, and we are coming up with a plan to address that. But it's not something that we can look after overnight. For instance, a lot of times we get Crime Stoppers tips about certain things, and people expect us to take that tip and immediately do a warrant and do a door kick in and look after things. It doesn't work that way. We can't really wrap it up in an hour like you see on TV, but we are diligently following up on any leads that we have, and hopefully in the near future I can report back to the board on that. I hope, Mr. Lewis, that answers your question without getting into too many specifics.
Don, there was something else that came up in the iPhone. Dave had sent the building officials out there to this particular location, and they found that everything is now in order. Well, one thing that I would stress to our members is if the public decides that they have found a complaint and they want to discuss it with you, listen to what they have to say, but then refer them to the OPP. Don't delay. Any delay can be costly. I'm sure you're well aware of that. There's really no need to mention it again, but we're getting too many complaints coming in second and third hand, and it doesn't help at all. Not at all. Okay, if there's nothing
Mr.
else.
Chair, one of the things
Yep.
that we can do. Sorry, I was just going to mention one of the things that we can do, and I know that this is sometimes a problem in other areas, is a lot of times people don't know what number to call OPP if it's a non-emergency. If they just want to report something, you know, everybody knows 911. But we do have some fridge magnets that I've had made up that does have our non-emergency number, and we can hand some of those out in Swinton Park as part of our patrols and part of the proactive things that we can do to encourage people to call.
I wonder if it would be worthwhile, once we get back into a council chamber, to have a delegation address council members on what they can do and what they can't, or what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Maybe Sergeant Wilcox could handle that one, or the community service officer. But I think all members of council should be aware, do not take these complaints seriously until you've heard everything that has to be said, and then refer them to the OPP. I think if all members of council were aware of that, it might help. Is there anything else?
Thank you. If you'd like us to take part in that, Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to do that. It's very important for people to call into OPP, because then there's an occurrence number that's generated. There has to be follow-up on it. We can track any trends that are happening. But if people, you know, are sort of standing around the water cooler talking about things, it's difficult to address the issue or know what exactly the issue is. So yes, it would be very helpful if people called police directly, and we'd be happy to respond to any of those calls for service.
Excellent.
Dale, I'd like to just ask a question. Do you mind just giving me the 1-800 number that you have? I think I have it, but I have a piece of paper here. I can write it on again, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Our non-emergency number is 1-888.
Yep.
310-1122. I'll get your fridge magnet.
That'd be great. All I will just say about the Swinton Park situation, I would suggest that you do not give up your presence and vigilance there, that this situation is a real hot bone of contention in the community. And I know I've had numerous phone calls and made numerous phone calls to people up above me. And I'm just hoping that something stupid doesn't happen. That's all I can say. It is, there is definitely a lot of concern about what's happening with the people that are being watched there, and also with some of the people that are doing the watching. It's grew into a very controversial public. The public is well aware of it. It's just, I'm not sure where all this is going to land, because it's trailed on too long. And I realize the situation the police are in. I'm not condemning anybody. It's just one of them situations that kind of like what you'd see in television sometimes. Just you know the ending's there, but you just don't know how bad it's going to be when the ending's there. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, what we don't want is vigilante groups, that's for sure.
That's the last thing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Powell, perhaps we could talk offline afterwards then.
Pardon?
That's
I missed that.
You can phone me anytime. That's not a problem. I think we've talked before about it. So.
Okay. Yes, John.
And then Zeke, is there somewhere we could, like on our website, post that, make sure that non-emergency numbers posted as well, just to help out?
Yeah, I will get the girls to do that today. Make sure it's quite visible.
When it was suggested that magnets could be taken and distributed to the people around Swinton Park, I don't know how you do that, because I guess if you're going to start driving into everybody's lane and delivering a magnet, it almost takes and magnifies the problem to the people in the community. It's not like it's admitting there's a problem, and I know we're all admitting a problem, but when the police start admitting there's a problem, that it's almost like this is out of control. How do we deal with it? Here's a magnet, phone us. I'd be awful, and I'm not telling you what to do, but there's two ways of reading that as far as an ordinary lay person in the community, and the police land in and say, here's a fridge magnet for you to put on. If you see anything happening in Swinton Park, phone us. Good intentions, how it's received, I don't really know. To some of the people in the community right now that are I think that you're very aware of, it will not be received very well. To some of the others, it could be, but I'm not about to tell you how to do your business, but there's two sides to that story, how it'll be received.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Pallister, I wasn't suggesting that we necessarily go door to door, but as we take statements from people or do an investigation as to handing that out, encouraging people to call police, it's just one avenue of approach that we can take. And as we're interviewing people and speaking to people, I think we can use our judgment on whether or not it would be well received or not, but I appreciate that suggestion.
No, that's fine.
Well, we've had a pretty good discussion today. I appreciate that. Confirmation of the next meeting. Tuesday, January 18th, at which time we shall have a vote for the board, chair and vice chair. It will be at 9 o'clock, January 18th at 9 a.m. So with that, we shall adjourn the meeting, and I thank you all for being here.